understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged. And many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it.
Truth chasers, y'all. Welcome. This is where the truth is the standard, even in something that's insignificant. Now, if you are a Madden casual player, then this video is not for you. If you have always supported the Madden for the next generation of consoles, this video is not for you. If you think that people making videos, like the Sim Standard and Simheads United, if they take this too seriously, if they take this hobby too seriously, then this video is not for you. Have fun with Madden, enjoy it. It could be a good game, competition, enjoy playing it with your friends, and have fun, man. God bless you. But if you're in that category, what I just named, then this video is not for you, and that's cool. No problems. But if you are a quote-unquote sim head and you know what you want out of Madden, and you're upset at the pace that EA is moving at, because they move at their own pace no matter what suggestions and problems we bring up. They move at their own pace, and anything else is an illusion of power. See, the game changers, those are PR moves. That's public relations, and the game changers have been there before the Sim Standard has joined them. The game changers have always been there. That's public relations. That's there to keep the people calm, the angry customers, that is, because EA is moving at their own pace. Now, I'm going to present to you some things, some visual presentations. I want y'all to sit back and enjoy. And some people might like this, some people might think, it's overboard, or they might get angry at me. But that's the whole point of this video. Madden Stockholm Syndrome and the saga of YouTube Strawman. Check it out. Check me out.
Victims of Stockholm Syndrome develop compassion and loyalty towards their captors. The condition follows psychologically traumatizing situations like hostage situations and kidnappings. In fact, Stockholm Syndrome got its name in 1973 when two thieves accosted a bank in Stockholm, Sweden, taking 4 bank employees hostage. For 6 days, the prisoners were held in a bank vault, tied to explosives with nooses around their necks. During a rescue attempt, police were shocked when the captives took offense, siding with the captors. Like the Stockholm victims, people who develop this condition endure situations where they're forced to contemplate the reality of severe injury or death. In order for Stockholm Syndrome to develop, a victim must also perceive that her captors have shown occasional kindnesses. Being permitted to eat, not being punished for a so-called transgression, and even being allowed to live are all considered benevolent to someone with Stockholm Syndrome. People with Stockholm experience symptoms similar to post-traumatic stress disorder patients. They may have flashbacks, nightmares, distrust of others, and the inability to enjoy previously pleasurable activities. No one is sure why this phenomenon occurs, but it has been suggested that a victim believes, perhaps unconsciously, that forming an attachment to her captor maximizes her survival. Oddly, Stockholm Syndrome doesn't resolve in tandem with the end of a hostage situation. In the 1973 bank robbing, the freed hostages remained loyal to their captors, even setting up a fund to cover the criminals' legal fees.
Even setting up a fund to cover the criminals' legal fees.
The symptoms of Stockholm Syndrome are actually something of an anomaly.
Now, is it possible that a form of Stockholm Syndrome has set in to the so-called sim community or the sim Madden players? the same people that used to support Save 65 and were angry now all of a sudden attack the people that say Save 65. I mean, I can understand if Madden has reached its goal, or if they have caught up to the pace that they once were at in the PS2s and the regular Xbox. If they caught up to that pace, then why complain? But if they are still behind that pace and people are still angry, why is there so much, drama when you say Save 65? I mean, what's up with that? Now, in reality, let me say this first. In reality, it's not about the devs. The developers have bosses, right? So everybody's concentrating on the devs, and they're talking about how they have a direct line to the devs. But the devs have bosses. Like, the CEOs of Electronic Arts and the stockholders, the corporate heads, whatever you want to call them. The same people that are over Cam Webber right now used to be over Ian Cummins. So, do you see how the illusion of power has really shifted the grown men in how they think and how they act on certain things? You can point out all the problems in Madden, all of them you want. But if you're still upset at the end of the day, at the pace that EA is going, then, you don't owe them that money. Just because of Madden nostalgia, and just because you're in this YouTube movement, or just because you want to it's a competition to show how well you could point out the problems in Madden. You don't owe them that money. You see, EA is not the boss. EA is the boss of what they do, but the customers are the boss of the money. And when I say Save 65, I'm talking to the people that actually spend $65. You got people that they big up EA. You could talk about the problems all you want, but 9 times out of 10, you don't have to buy the game. And creating this outlet of suggestion videos and all of that, I think that's wrong. I think that's an illusion of power. Now, that might be my opinion, but hey, man, every fact starts with a theory. So we can say that's your opinion and all of that, but grown men think 1 + 1 is 2. You know what I'm trying to say? 1 + 1 is 2. It's almost like people are scared to think. Like, you can say 1 + 1, but don't you go saying 2. You better stop all that stupid thinking. Remember, I'm talking to the sim heads now. So they shouldn't take advantage of people having a hobby. It's one thing to have a hobby, but taking advantage of the desperation of that hobby by abusing the people with bad business practices and having false hope in the EA devs, that's wrong. I don't care what anybody says. That's wrong. Now, this leads to the second portion of this video. I'm going to give you a visual presentation once again, and this is the second part of my video, the saga of the YouTube Strawman Felons. Check this out. I'll be back.
We're moving on now to fallacies that involve what I've called violations of the rules of rational argumentation. The rules in question are things like being able and willing to reason well, not being willing to lie or distort things simply to win an argument, and so on. The first fallacy of this type that we'll look at is more commonly known as the straw man fallacy. For the sake of gender equity, I'm going to call it straw figure, since there's no reason to think that men are the only ones who commit this fallacy or who are taken in by it. The name comes from the practice of using human figures made of straw as practice dummies in military training. Obviously, it's easier and safer to practice certain combat techniques when your opponent is made of straw. The fallacy works like this. Alice offers an argument to Bob. She wants to convince him of something. Let's say that Alice's argument is really pretty strong, like this boxer. Bob isn't sure he can handle this argument. So instead of trying to refute Alice's actual argument, Bob decides to engage a different argument. He decides to engage this straw figure. What is the straw figure? It's a weaker, distorted version of Alice's original argument. Because it's weaker, Bob is easily able to refute the straw figure argument. The straw figure fallacy is complete when Bob does the dance of joy and claims that he has successfully refuted Alice's original argument. But of course, Bob hasn't refuted the original argument, he's only refuted a distorted misrepresentation of it. This is the straw figure or strawman fallacy. This fallacy is often categorized as a fallacy of relevance because the attacks made on the weak straw figure are irrelevant to judging the actual strengths and weaknesses of the original argument. And this is correct, but I prefer to think of it as a violation of the rules of rational argumentation, especially when it involves knowingly and willfully misrepresenting an argument. When someone is willing to do this, they're no longer playing by the rules. They're more concerned with the appearance of winning than with argumentation itself. When you see this going on, you should try to correct the misrepresentation and get the discussion back on track. If it's an honest mistake and the arguer is willing to correct their misunderstanding, that's great. But if you catch them doing this again and again, then there's probably no point in engaging argumentatively with this person, because they've shown you that they're not willing to play by the rules.
Now that goes out to, all the commenters and videos of people accusing me of saying that I mentioned or said that the sim standard is getting paid off by EA, and these are all conspiracy theories and all of this stuff that people have said of things that I have not implied or said. I never said that EA is getting paid off. Not at all. I believe that, the sim standard, they didn't know what was, happening when it all went down, and their intentions has always been to bring a simulation football game. Their intentions were always pure, and I never accused them of not being or having impure intentions. I never did that. And for the people to say that I have, they have to put false words in my mouth just to disagree with my position, then it's not really about disagreement, but it's about dislike. I mean, that's cool, and they could dislike me. That's not a problem at all. But and even other things that I heard people say, like, is too little of the sim community, and EA's too big and we're too small. But it's funny, they mention that stuff, in my direction, and they forget that they're talking to the dude. I mean, I started this thing, to put modesty aside for 1 second. I started this thing on my own. The general format of making these Madden videos, I pretty much pioneered it. Right? Now, with that being said, these people, they're throwing these implications and these comments at me, and I was by myself when I first started this. So if I was to have that attitude of it's too big of a deal, and that means people that met each other through all of these YouTube videos and everything, I mean, they probably wouldn't have met each other through this whole sim community, Madden, basketball, whatever, this whole movement. I started this by myself, so it's not about how small we are and how big our problem is. It's about taking a stand if you feel it's worth taking a stand. The thing that EA did was wrong, and what they did that was wrong was their original pace of making the game better for the previous generation of games, that was resetted at the expense of the consumers or the customers. And now they just want people to just say, hey, well, nothing else we could do. That's a position of powerlessness. You see? Making all these suggestion videos and all of that, I believe that those days are over, because I think if you're a sim head and you are upset at the pace that Madden or EA Sports chooses to take this game, if you're upset at that pace, then you should be able to say something and you should be able to do something. And save 65, that's the only power that a customer has, saving your money, not buying it. You know, making suggestions, all of that stuff, that's called the illusion of power, because the devs don't even run the whole show. It's the corporate heads, the CEOs, the stockholders. The devs have to listen to them and follow them and take orders from them. Cam Webber's not going to kick in the door of Peter Moore or whoever's running the show and tell him, look, you better give me this or else I'm leaving. It doesn't work like that. You see, EA is a special company. And what I mean by that is they're one of the few companies that have the publisher and the developers in the same building. Like when I went to Natural Motion, 505 contracted out Natural Motion services. So when I went to Natural Motion, I was, working with the dev kit, and I was in there when they was programming the Great House update. I was there. And 505 wasn't breathing down their backs. They wasn't all over them. They was in it someplace else. And Natural Motion had to make presentations according to the parameters that 505 gave them. Like, they had special money they had to pay to Microsoft to actually make an update. So there was politics involved, and there was other things involved that the people, really don't know about. And, that's fine, because that's just the business side of it, So EA Sports is not like that. The corporate heads, the Peter Moores, CEOs, all that stuff, they are there, and the developers are just there to do their bidding. I mean, if the CEOs knew how to program, then most of those devs wouldn't even be there. But the CEOs don't know about programming software. That's why the devs are there. So the part that I don't like about the whole thing is that you have grown men sitting on EA's lap as if they're like some type of cyber Santa Claus. And you have grown men sitting on Santa Claus's lap talking about, I want run animations, I want run blocking. And they're like, okay, yeah, sure. Great, yeah. And it's just a mechanism there set for people to vent. So when the game comes out, they're going to say, well, dag, they don't have the stuff that I want, but hey, nothing else I could do. Let me just play what I have, appreciate it for 2 months, and then put it away. I mean, video games is the only genre of sales that actually can get away with stuff like this. I mean, if I was to buy half a house and they said it's finished and it only has 2 walls, I'm not going to buy the house. I don't care if it has a new stove, a new carpeting. It only has 2 walls. But this is what EA is doing. They're trying to say, look, the stuff that the sim heads want, we don't have it. But shut up and deal with it, because we give you this. So if the house doesn't have 4 walls, I don't care if you have a stove, top-notch stove. This is the madness that the people are falling under. And this is what I'm fighting against. It's not about the game anymore with me. It's about grown men that are almost brainwashed because of desperation to play football video games, nostalgia, and suggestions to the devs as if they have the real power. The only thing these people listen to is when the money's gone. Truth chasers. Remember, this video is to sim heads, or people who call themselves sim heads, and this is not for the casual gamers. So if you're gonna throw words in my mouth, at least be what this community calls a sim head. Remember the Apex 8 run animations, blocking, throwing, all of that stuff we all used to speak on, player movements, all of these things. That is supposed to be what you guys wanted. If you don't know what you want, then you shouldn't be mad. But the sim heads, For years now, they have been saying what they want, and they use All Pro Football 2K8 as a standard for video game makers, and they use the NFL in real life as the ultimate standard when it comes to something as insignificant as video games. So even in this time of EA marketing, or everybody who cares about interactive football, interactive video game football, for all the people who care about that and the standard of simulation, like I said, this video was for you. So if you're going to make a rebuttal, do it as grown men and attack the points, attack the main idea. Don't talk about my shoelaces and what I did last week, because you are just creating a straw man argument. Now, with all that being said, you know me, you know what I really stand for. The Bible, yo. This is all a matrix, man. This is really all the matrix. And the sad part about, I mean, even regular sports, Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, the NBA playoffs, that's the matrix, because Carmelo Anthony can't do nothing for anybody. He doesn't know us. But video games, that's like the matrix inside the matrix. That's like the baby matrix. It's almost like Inception. You know, a dream inside of a dream inside of a dream. And what I'm trying to say is, unplug from the matrix. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe that Jesus Christ can save you from your sins, from this world, and from Satan. He can save you from lies and everything that you've ever been through, heal you and set you free from the captivation of the age of this world. Because everybody has to die. I work in a hospital. I see it every day. Come to Jesus Christ, man. All of this stuff really doesn't matter. You know, I'm not even talking about the game in this video. I'm talking about the effects of the game and it has on people's minds. That's important, and that's why I made this video. I invite you to come to the Lord. Truth chasers. Gideon.